There she is.
Oh.
So sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I hugely apologize. I don't know what to say. I was looking and clicking and everything else.
I'm going to let a few people in because there's lots of people joining us now.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't you just love technology?
I'm just embarrassed at my rubbishness at it.
No, it's something. And actually, the head of Facebook Europe, Nicola Mendelssohn, I know she was watching, and I was dying to say, Nicola, what's going wrong?
What do I do? Yeah.
But anyway, so let's just let a few more people in, and then
Sure.
Yeah, we will get going. Oh dear. You see,
So are we on Facebook now?
But no, so what we're doing is we're recording Zoom, but on Facebook we've shared the Zoom link, so people are watching now and they can ask questions if you have time at the end.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazingly brilliant.
But you know what, this is actually better because this way we can share it everywhere. So we can share it on Instagram if you're happy for us to, and YouTube, and
yeah, of course.
You know what, it may all have worked for the best. Right, and so how are you, other than our
I'm great.
Fun and games? Yeah, good. You look good. So
I'm really good.
Thank you so much for offering to come on today. Look, it's it's the day before World Mental Health Day, and I know that you have spoke very honestly and with a lot of raw emotion very recently in the press about your own, mental health. And you've written this amazing new book, which I've had the privilege of reading, and it really is fantastic. This Girl is on Fire is the name of the book, and it promises us to will sort of live, learn and thrive, in the life you love. So tell us a little bit about the journey you've been on, Andrea, and what inspired you to write the book.
Well, first of all, thank you for saying such kind things about the book. It really means a lot to me. Thank you, because you know me, all I've ever wanted to do, like with my last book, and this is actually my third book, is if I've had a really rough experience, is to gather all the information that I've had and how to overcome it, piece it together in a really easy to understand and follow way, and pass it on to everybody else. So that's in a nutshell what I've done with this book. In a nutshell, I had a nervous breakdown last year, and people were quite surprised to hear that, because I'm quite a smiley person. I'm quite a together person. I put on a really brave smiley front, and and if someone says to me, how are you? My first answer is, I'm fine. How are you? And people think that's not what someone who's having a nervous breakdown looks like. And what I would urge you to think is actually, yes, it is, because many times someone who is outwardly looking like they're coping, and oh my gosh, how does she do it? She takes on so much. A lot of the time, actually, when you scratch beneath the surface, people aren't coping as well as they may seem. So that's the sort of first thing that I'll put out there. When I had my breakdown last year, it came as a shock even to myself. And it came about because I did a TV show called SAS Who Dares Wins. SAS Who Dares Wins is an insane TV show where basically normal people who aren't Marines or otherwise are put through their paces, and to see how they can cope with all the horrible physical and mental things that are sort of thrown at them. And for me, what happened was many things that I had experienced in my past and had buried and neatly put away in a box and put somewhere else and thought, right, I'm not going to look at that anymore, literally burst out, and I couldn't get them back in the box anymore. And it was like gremlins in my head. I kept revisiting traumatic past events. I hadn't made peace with them. I hadn't come to terms with them. And so what I tried to do was get busier and busier and busier so that I wouldn't have to look at them. So that in a nutshell was how the breakdown happened. Why I decided to write the book. Sorry, you know me, I give really long-winded answers. Why I decided to write the book. The catalyst was one person. And I was going through my fairly big experience, and it was a very dark experience, and I went to the darkest place you can go when you're experiencing sort of reliving mental trauma and this sort of thing. But the catalyst for the book was one person. Basically, we all have these people in our lives who moan. They just moan. And this one person, they were someone who's in our lives, and they were on speakerphone. They were bitching and moaning and carrying on, and it was the same stuff that they had been moaning about a month before, 6 months before, a year before, 3 years before. Nothing was their fault. Nothing was their responsibility. Any solution that was offered up was, oh, I can't do that because of this, this, and this. Well, why don't you try that? Well, I can't do that because this. Why? And I was listening to this. I was getting angrier and angrier because I just thought, you're not taking any responsibility for anything that is happening around you. You're not seeing that you are the catalyst for 90% of it because your attitude stinks. But also, you're not making any changes. And if you change nothing changes. It's just logical. So anyway, I couldn't bear it anymore. And I went upstairs and I got my notebook out. I always sort of carry a notebook around, and I sat on the floor, and I'm going to swear, I wrote, shit happens. You need to just get over it. You need to find a way to get over it. We all have our thing, whether it is a big thing, whether it's a hugely traumatic event, or whether it is tiny, tiny little paper cut things that are just not working out in your life. We all have our thing, and it doesn't matter what that thing is. If it is not working for you, you need to find a way to get over it. And that later became the prologue to my book. I didn't know it at the time. I was just like rah, 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 writing all this stuff down. And then I sort of thought about it, and I thought, you know, I'm having therapy. I'm literally dealing with post-traumatic stress. I'm trying to find ways to sort of piece myself back together again. And that's a big thing. But there'll be people out there that can use this information that I'm sort of gathering that will help them just in the smaller things, whether it's just that you've worked really hard and actually life hasn't worked out as you'd hoped. Now what do I do? Those sorts of feelings. Or your relationship is going through a bit of a bumpy time. Your kids have left home. There's so many mums right now, and I'm going through this right now as well. Kids have gone off to university, and suddenly you're looking around going, I literally remember dropping you off at infant school. How are you now off at university? And now what do I do? So it doesn't matter what it is that you're going through. All the things that I sort of put together in the book will help you stop, take a look at where you are now, work out what it is that isn't working for you, work out what it is that you actually want. Because 9 times out of 10, especially with women, we don't actually know what we want. We know what we don't want. And we could literally whinge for hours about what we don't want. But then if you asked us, well, what do you actually want? We don't know what to say. So it's, I sort of say it in the book, other than, I don't know, Bradley Cooper, wine, and a lot of time in my hands. I can't think of, I don't know what I want. So, and I can't give you that, sadly. So it's helping you sort of work out, right, if there is no magic wand, you're the magic wand. So how do you figure out what you want, and then how do you go and get it? I'm so sorry, Katie. I talk so much. You asked me one question, and then 4 days later, here we still are.
It's great. I can just sit back and listen. It's fabulous. No, seriously. I mean, it's lovely to see you smiling. I've only ever known you smiling. I actually feel very guilty that when we were doing a podcast together for, the Latte Lounge last year, I didn't know how much you were suffering. And had I known, and it was pre-COVID, I would have just given you a hug. So,
please don't feel bad at all, because actually doing things like coming to see you, doing the Latte Lounge, they were my happy places. Okay. Doing things like that makes me feel really good. Doing anything where I know that I'm making people feel better, passing on information, having a cup of tea, having a chat, they make me feel great. So whatever you do not feel bad, because I enjoyed every second of what we did together.
Good.
So put that to one side.
Okay, that's gone to the side. And look, what you've said, you know, we can all totally relate to in the Latte Lounge. And it's the same in This Girl Is on Fire community. You know, we're the sandwich generation. We are juggling our kids, whether they're teenagers or toddlers or babies. Some women don't have kids, but they're dealing with their aging parents. And then we're bottom of the list. So, you know, we never look after ourselves. And it's almost like, just as the kids maybe start to leave home and we've got free time, it's all, and then menopause perhaps hits and perimenopause, and it's like a massive explosion, and you're like, what the hell just happened? So do you think any part of this dark place that you went to had anything to do with your experience with, you know, your hysterectomy, which you've talked very openly about, and menopause, or was this very much to do with you know, the trauma you've been through, or a bit of both?
A bit of both, actually. I do think it was a bit of both. I think that obviously I was really open in my last book, which is how we ended up connecting, which is Confessions of a Menopausal Woman. Because I'd had a full hysterectomy, and what that means is people don't realize that all hysterectomies are not created equal. So I had everything removed, so ovaries and the whole thing. On a side note, I was really disappointed that I didn't weigh less, because I thought, clearly that's a lot of stuff coming out. I'm going to get on the scales, it's going to be awesome. No difference whatsoever. I thought I'd have a flat stomach.
Can I just say, Tara, well, there's a few people on the group, we were talking about exactly that. We said, how much does a womb weigh before? I asked my surgeon, he goes, oh, it's about £1. It's like, oh, God.
Seriously?
£1, not worth it.
Yeah, so it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I do think that, you know, I'm one of life's copers, and I always have been. You know, I'm an eldest child. I'm of the generation where you try and be a good girl, you try and do what your mum and dad want you to do to try and please them, and then you go out to the wider world and you try and please your boyfriend, and then you try and please your boss, and then you try and please your kids, and it's just how I was kind of brought up. So I think when I had the hysterectomy, and clearly hormones crashed, and I went through quite a difficult time with that. With hindsight, looking back on it, I do think that it was like a wound had started to unpick. I really do. So that when I went and did SAS, it was like the seams had just started to break a little bit. So when that box of memories flew open, I think now looking back on it, because of, you know, having a hysterectomy is a fairly traumatic thing. It had started kind of then, but I didn't realize it at the time. But what I do think joyously is everything happened at exactly the right time for a reason. I think that I was meant to have the, you know, the horrible hysterectomy and the fallout that happened, because I was meant to write this amazing book, which then spawned the website. I was meant to go on SAS and have all this stuff burst out of me, which I then tried to cover up and have a breakdown, because then I looked it in the eye and I dealt with it. I genuinely think that I would have carried on doing that, plodding along and never actually addressing anything if these things hadn't happened to me. And I'm thankful and grateful that they all happened, because now they're addressed. Now I feel, you know, people have said to me, one thing, do you regret doing SAS because it sparked all of that? No, best thing that ever happened to me. And the guys are amazing, and it's a wonderful program, and I'm so grateful that I did it. And you know, two, was it kind of, how do you come out the other side of literally having a breakdown and wanting everything to end? In my darkest moments, I just didn't want to be in pain anymore. I just wanted it all to stop. And I literally got to the darkest place that a human being can go to. And thankfully, it didn't work. And I'm here and I'm grateful. But it was all worth it, because now I feel like I'm back to the person I was before. This isn't some new me. You know, people saying, oh, you seem so different. I'm not different. I'm actually back to how I was before, as in 25 years ago, before I started being scared, before I started realizing that actually the world can be quite a bumpy, bruisey place, and the world prefers it if you stay quiet and don't speak up. And you know, boys don't like noisy girls, and men don't like women who speak up. And sometimes, for me anyway, unfortunately, the repercussions for speaking up were traumatic. That's gone now, so I kind of feel, I'm back. It's nice. None of that experience was wasted, because I've learned so much from it. But now I feel kind of like, right, let's roll the sleeves up, let's crack on. I have a whole new, I genuinely feel like I've started again. And I'm 51 now, which, you know, gosh, in olden times would be dead by now. So I'm pretty lucky that, you know, I'm getting the chance to start again. But it's so refreshing because I'm doing it not caring anymore about what other people think. And by other people, I don't mean, you know, that I don't give a stuff whether, you know, I'm hurting people's feelings. It's the opposite of that. What I mean is people, and I suppose I do mean the patriarchy in a lot of ways. I don't care whether you like it or not. This isn't for you. This is for us women. Yeah. So it's nice. It's good.
For the people that don't know your story, and I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it or not, is your past trauma, is that in the book? That so people, because we're obviously talking, and I've heard a bit about your background. I don't know if it's something you want to talk about or not, but I know a lot of people themselves have had past trauma, and it may be lots of different things. I mean, for myself, and I relate to you in many ways. We're both 51, we've both been through hysterectomies, we've both sort of set up these forums, and I had my own personal trauma at 21 when I lost a best friend, and I have hidden it. Well, I haven't hidden it, but I buried it for 30 years and never addressed it. And when you were talking about doing SAS, I don't think I would have been strong enough to do that, because reading, you say in your book, and we've spoken about before, that you had some guy put a black bag over your head and scream orders at you, and you know, you were in floods of tears. That must have taken a lot of strength for you to actually just even be there, B, fall out of a helicopter backwards, and C, be sitting here today smiling. So, I mean, are you able or willing to sort of talk about your past trauma, or would you rather not? And how it's on?
To be honest, I can't.
No.
Because it's something that involves other persons, and it's something that happened to me rather than witnessing something or something like that. So I can't talk about it. But also I wouldn't want to anyway. One, because they don't deserve to be spoken about. Yeah. But also I genuinely feel that what happened to me happened to me. What happened to you happened to you. What happened to anyone who is watching or listening to this happened to them. And it doesn't matter really individually what that is, if it's stopping us in some way from moving forward. So actually I think that, and this was a deliberate thing in the book where we decided, because originally I'd written everything. I wrote it all. I don't know why I'm doing that, because I did that. Wrote it all down. Yeah. And then we realized, actually, let's take it out, because otherwise people might read it and think, oh yeah, but I didn't go through that, therefore this book isn't for me. Yeah. Because actually it doesn't matter what your thing is, and your thing can be something as hugely upsetting as what you've experienced, and everyone will have their own thing. Or I didn't want people to think, well, I've never been through something that's traumatic. I've never been a victim of abuse. I've never witnessed, you know, something horrible in my life. I've never had parents treat me badly, or whatever the huge range of things is that we as human beings can experience. Therefore, this book isn't for me. Actually, the book is for everybody, because it doesn't matter what your thing is. We all have something that is making us feel unhappy or stuck or powerless or choking. You know, when we sometimes, like at the moment, I'm really working on the website to try and integrate a lot of the lessons that I've learned through in the book, through the experts that I speak to, because I'm not the expert. I'm a vehicle for passing on all the expertise. And so at the moment, I'm really working through, like, what are the words that sort of sum up what people might be feeling right now? And even that in itself is such an interesting exercise, because for me, again, my trusty notebook. So I was writing down, right, how are women feeling right now? This is based on the response that I'm getting, but also, you know, sort of more generally. And I think it's powerless, that they can't speak up, and that there's a choking there. You want to speak, but you can't articulate the words. You feel like you're not being heard. And I want to flip that around and give women some sort of feeling of control back, because I think, especially now with obviously coronavirus and all the worries that has brought, whether it's economically, because none of us knows what's going to happen. All of us have been affected by this economically and physically and every sort of way. But most of that fear that we're all feeling comes because we feel so out of control. So for me, it's trying to encourage people to look at ways of, what are the things that are within my environment right now that I can control? And that in itself makes you feel less choked and less small and powerless. And you realize, actually, I do have some sort of power, and not in a Marvel comic book sort of way. You know, just in yourself. You know, look at what you've done during lockdown. Look how you've taken control of your environment. I think, you know, you've been amazing, and you've done exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, and that's it. I think, you know, so many women say to me, and it's the same for me, is that you grow up thinking a certain way. I used to think, well, my dad's a doctor, my uncles are doctors, I'm therefore stupid, because I couldn't be good at science. And sometimes it takes, you know, for me, the reason I set this up was the same, perimenopause, menopause, wanting to just inform people. And it might take 50 years to finally find something you're good at or you like through bad experiences. But, you know, the reason I love your book is it actually takes you from where we are today and makes you take stock of your life and say, right, I do want to do this. We are living longer. We're living healthier, better lives. So come on, guys, you know, please God, I've got another 30, 40 years. You know, these are Andrea's sort of top tips to sort of get you there.
Yeah.
There's some lovely...
and it's interesting that you say about, you know, my sort of top tips. For me, it was really important. People have asked me, why were you so open and raw and vulnerable in the book? Because it's quite an unusual thing for someone in my job to do, to actually hold your hand up and go, do you know what? This is my experience. This is what I went through. This is how you can overcome it. Because otherwise it would have just been an instruction manual. How boring is that? Nobody learns by giving instruction. People learn through storytelling. You learn through shared experience. And, you know, and if there's a couple of little bits in the book that you go, oh my gosh, I heard this amazing story about this book I read, and this woman did blah, 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 blah. It's the equivalent of sitting around a campfire. You remember the story, and it's the moral of the tale that sticks in your head, but it's the story that makes it stick in there. So that was, for me, why there's so much, you know, first person storytelling in it. And then the end of each chapter is, and this is what you can learn. This is the takeaway. And what would you do in this situation? So it's a sort of mixture of the two.
Well, just a couple more minutes, because I know I don't want to keep you, but what was it like for Nick and for your kids? I mean, you know, to read that you were in a hotel room thinking these dreadful thoughts, and, you know, you've got gorgeous children. How has that kind of affected them, and what do they think of the book? Because obviously they must be very proud of you.
No, kids don't care. Not about me, but they do not care that I've written a book.
Oh, I don't believe that.
You know, I've got teenagers. Dinner is on the table.
Right. Yeah. The washing set.
Yeah, exactly. But Finley is 19, gone off to university. I gave him the chance to read the book, and I gave him it. and he didn't bother. And I was totally fine with that. That's completely fine. He's got his own thing going on. With Amy, she hasn't read all of the book, but she has read some of it and flicked through it. And her response to it is really beautiful, actually. She's nearly 14 years old. She's going through what every 13, 14-year-old girl is going through at school. And she said, we're a very open family, but I'm also their mother. And my job is to protect them for as long as I possibly can. And it's to protect them from the bumps and scrapes of life for as long as I can, so that they can, you know, happily go about their business, and then gradually kind of feed it in so that you're giving them the tools. And what she said was, at one point, she said, Mom, you've been like Mrs. Incredible, and you've stretched over the top of us, and with the bullets pinging off of you, so we could just play underneath, and we didn't even know any of this was happening. And I just wanted to cry, because I thought, that's all I've ever wanted to do as a mum, is just protect you. But gradually starting to feed in, because I think she's sort of old enough now to see I'm a human being as well as just your mother. And that's something that I think our generation never had. Your mum just stayed your mum. Yeah. Whereas we're a lot more open in how we talk about things. So what that's done, and especially, you know, talk about World Mental Health Day, what it's meant is that we have very open conversations about how we're feeling, you know, in a two-way thing. I don't tell them every day, no, I'm really struggling today. But what I might say is, do you know what, I'm not feeling great, so I'm going to take a bit of time off. So I'm actually just going to sit and watch some telly today, or I'm going to go back to bed because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by things. And it means that she can go, do you know, I understand, yeah, I had a bit of a bad day, and we'll sit together. But I don't think our parents' generation would ever have had a conversation like that, where you own up to, I'm feeling a bit weird. Yeah. I'm not feeling great, but not scaring them. I don't want to ever scare my kids, because they just want their mum to be around, which is why it was really hard to be open about getting to a point where I didn't want to be in pain anymore. But actually, it was them. It was my love for them that meant I got up the next morning, and I'd sobbed myself to sleep lying on a hotel floor, got up the next morning, had a shower, put on a bright face, and went to work. And people think, how the hell can you do that? Shame. You're so ashamed that you got to that point, but also love. I love my family. And I was ashamed that I had got to that point where I could have caused them so much hurt. So that's really hard, obviously, for my kids to read. But also they need to know that it's because I love them that I will never, ever let myself get into that position again.
I mean, it's just harrowing, and I can't quite believe it, but I think you've been amazing. I think the book is going to be incredibly helpful for so many people. There's a few comments from people. I'm just going to quickly read them to you in case there are questions as well. And then we must let you go. So Lauren says, oh my God, I was the same before my hysterectomy. So grateful, Andrea. This is Kate, for your amazing honesty. And Melanie says, so grateful too. Everyone's situation and feelings are valid. It's all about knowledge. Estrogen plays a massive part. We get stronger from those around us. Information is power. So, you know, absolutely, information is power. Where can we buy the book? Well, I've got my copy, but where can everyone else buy the book?
If you go on thisgirlisonfire.com, yeah, we've basically put a landing page up where there's loads of different options. Clearly you can get it from Amazon, yeah. And you can literally one click away, just put Andrea McLean, This Girl is on Fire, and it will come up. But if you'd rather have other options, it's in Waterstones as well. But if you would literally go to thisgirlisonfire.com, and we put a landing page with, I think, about 6 different options of ways that you can buy the book.
Okay, and Andrea's very generously given us a signed copy to give away. So the competition details are on Facebook and on Instagram, and we'll announce the winner on weekend. So thank you so much. I'm so pleased to see you looking well, and I'm sorry about the Facebook glitch.
I'm just as sorry. And Nick will come home. He's playing golf. He's my IT guy, and he'll be like, "Mrs. you just had to press that." Sorry.
No, it may well be our settings as well. But I've got a lovely thing on my Zoom saying you're running out of time. That's a bit scary.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I've got.
In what way?
Exactly. We've got years ahead of us. All right. God bless and thank you so much, and good luck with the book, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, everyone.